Good evening and welcome to the Meridian Parks and Rec Commission meeting for Wednesday, May 9th. Time is 5:36. I do know Craig Steele will be running about 15 minutes late, but Rachel, if you wouldn't mind, could you please take roll?
Yes, thank you. Joe Greer,
Present.
Jessica West,
Present.
Keith Bevan,
Present.
Michelle Jensen is absent, Kayla McNay is absent, John Nesmith,
Here.
Mike Peppin,
Here.
Craig Steele, as mentioned, he'll be a little bit later this evening. Hannah Sturdivant is absent.
Okay, moving on to the adoption of the agenda. Could I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
Madam President,
Yes.
make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
And Madam President, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we need an approval of the April 4th, 2018 special meeting minutes for the Spring Pathways Tour.
Madam President, I'll make a motion to approve them.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Shelley Houston, do you have some announcements for us today?
Hello, Commissioners. How are you?
Great.
We have been so busy. We are spreading the word far and near about Meridian Parks and Rec and all the wonderful services and programs we offer. Just last week, on May 3rd, Steve Sidway and I hosted an hour-and-a-half long session. It was called City 101, and it was a morning session where we had part of the time, and then the police department had part of the time, and we were able to spend the morning with a group of about 20 local residents to tell them all about what it is we do and how we serve the community and some of our behind the scenes actions. And so they really enjoyed that. And then they also heard from the police about things like body-worn cameras and some of the crime prevention and anti-drug activities. So that was very worthwhile. And it's kind of a program, a pilot the city's doing. So we'll decide if that was worthwhile, and we may be called upon to do it some more in the future. But we showed a nice PowerPoint and had some handouts for them, watched a video. So that was very nice. Also, we'll have another opportunity this Friday night. We'll have an information table or booth at Meridian Middle School's annual community night. And it's kind of like a little family festival there on the school grounds, kind of an outdoor event. And so we'll be promoting our summer camps, our activity guide, our adult sports leagues, and that sort of thing. And so we're looking for opportunities every chance we get to spread the word of what we're doing. One way we've really done that also, starting on Saturday and then all throughout this week, we're celebrating Unplugged and Be Outside Week. Remember, we're asking families and especially children to try to stay unplugged, to avoid computer, video games, cell phones, televisions, all those distractions that keep them indoors and glued to a screen rather than out in nature, getting exercise, enjoying the scenery. So we've had all sorts of free activities, and those continue throughout the week with everything from fishing to lacrosse to arts and crafts to a doggy walk. I mean, just all sorts of really great things. As you'll see in your packet, it's the navy blue fold-out is the complete schedule events. Also on the back cover is a bingo card that several children, by attending certain events in a certain pattern or staying unplugged the entire week, they can be put in for some prize drawings. So anyway, happy Unplug and Be Outside Week. I also gave you, of course, the upcoming schedule events, which you recognize. I won't bore you by reading it all to you, but I want to point out one event that you might not know about that is how we could support another commission here at the city. Historic Preservation Month celebration. That's Thursday, May 24th. And what's cool about that is 5 or 6 local homes in downtown Meridian, as well as 5 or 6 local businesses, all that are on the historic register or have some historic element or heritage. They're opening themselves to the public. There will also be some activities here in the City Hall lobby and with the History Center. So that would be a nice way to support them, is to stop by for that History Preservation Month celebration. The real one I want to talk to you about is the Hill Grand Opening event. We keep going around the Jones's Barn on the flyer, but we've settled on what we've got. So you'll see the Hillsdale Park Grand Opening Celebration. As you'll recall, on Friday, May 25th, at 10:30 in the morning is when there'll be a joint ribbon cutting with all the collaborators of the Hill, and that'll really take place out in front of the new South Meridian Family YMCA. But this is the evening event. This is the free event that's more of a family festival featuring that free concert by the Southwest Surfers. Just for a little added insight, there's going to be classic cars on display from kind of that surfer period. In terms of food and beverage, we have the food trucks Knack Attack, Mad Mac, and then the Big Dutch Brothers beverage van will be there. When we say kids' activities, we're talking about crafts and games and soccer and basketball and parachutes and limbo, and they'll be making pasta and marshmallow structures, and there'll be some face painting. And then some information booths set up by St. Luke's, the Y, the Bookmobile, Parks and Rec. So really, if you're in town, I'd really encourage you to help us promote that and to plan to come and spend some time with us that evening. So that's kind of the big one. Beyond that, I would just have you kind of keep following along on the community calendar. I'm working with the American Legion Post 113, the veterans, to plan a Memorial Day ceremony at the Rock of Honor. Some of you were able to come to our ribbon cutting there in Kleiner Park of the new Memorial Plaza. It was one of my favorite events we've had. It had a unique personality and some touching moments and little bits of flair, and it really looks gorgeous. So if you haven't had a chance to see that in person or see the photos, make sure to do that. I think that's it for now. You can read the calendar and follow along. As always, if you have any questions about any of these events or would like to make a special effort to attend, just let me know, and we'd be glad to have you or put you to work in any capacity. Does anyone have any questions at this time?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Last year, you had at the dog park, there was the...
Okay, Paws in the Park.
Yes.
We did that in the spring. We thought about doing it again, but we were almost a victim of our own success, and that we'd almost outgrown that space. The Poor Story Bark Park was never really intended as an event space in terms of parking and open, space for vendor booths and whatnot. So rather than doing that and overtaxing it, plus we're competing with parking for the Meridian Speedway and lots of other, the ball fields are next door and they've got league playing going. So instead of doing that standalone event, we are going to this fall team up with the Helping Hands Dog Walk and Dog Festival / Fair in Kleiner Park.
Oh.
So we'll still be able to promote the dog park, and remember the clerk's office offered free dog licensing for first-time licensing of pets. We'll offer that as a big attraction. So if anything, we're teaming up with the other doggy people and shifting it over there, just mostly because of space constraints and
It
that
was
sort of
packed.
thing.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yes.
awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Very
Anything
good.
else?
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm going to skedaddle over to the City of Meridian Town Hall meeting at the St. Ignatius Catholic School right now, where we will have an information booth and be promoting these activities and events as well. So, Houston, out.
Thank you, Shelley. Yeah, follow that one, Steve.
I'm not sure I can. That was pretty good. Shelley does a great job at promoting our events. There is a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people may not see. Of course, he's very active on social media and Facebook, and we try and get it out that way. But things like the town hall tonight and the Meridian middle school event tomorrow night and different things are just examples of the many ways that she helps to spread the word. So that's great. Ready for me to move on to the next one? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Commission team building activity. Historically, June is when we do our team building activity. If we were to stick with our tradition of the second Wednesday of June, this year it would happen to fall the day before the city picnic, when we're all invited to Kleiner Park with our families to celebrate volunteerism in the entire city, and the city awards are given out. In talking with Joe, we felt like 2 picnics, 2 nights in a row probably wasn't the right fit. We would like everyone to participate, if you can, in the city picnic. So we would propose just holding a regular meeting in June on the night before here, and then moving our team building activity to July. The only downside I can see is, July can be hot, but I think we can plan for that and adjust accordingly. So our proposal is to move to July, and I would just put that out there for any discussion.
Madam President, that sounds wonderful.
Thank you. Does anybody have any opposition to that? Excellent. That's easy.
We will make that happen. We will have a regular meeting on our regular night in June, and we will move the team building activity to the meeting in July.
Will that be the same time, 5:30?
I think so. We've typically, eaten and had a barbecue or something together, and I think the time works well for that. So I think we just propose same time, different location. If anyone has, let me just bring that up. In the past years, we've looked for new activities to do and enjoy. 2 years ago, we did pickleball in Settlers Park. Last year, we played disc golf in Kleiner Park and kind of introduced ourselves to both of those growing activities. We could visit one of the new parks and figure out what we wanted to do there. Hillsdale Park has the activities there for the pathway and the exercise stations, and we have new pickleball courts at Rita Husky if you want to try out some new pickleball courts that are actually truly designed as pickleball courts. So
I think we also had a discussion about potentially getting a tour at the Y so that if it was hot.
that's right. Oh, we did talk about that. Thank you for reminding me. So
Yeah.
if we did do Hillsdale Park, we could also request a tour of the Y as a group and tour the Y. And then if there was inclement weather, we could have the inside option as well.
We could take advantage of the air conditioning.
Yeah.
Oh.
So unless there are strong feelings for other ideas, we may move forward with Hillsdale Park as the location with a tour of the Y as part of that team building activity. Sound good? Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks for the reminder, Joe.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. We have no old business, so
I'm gonna take Kim's place.
you're okay. Kim's place. New business.
Kim Warren is currently visiting an ACHD meeting on the 10-mile road widening that would include the area for the trailhead. So we felt it was important, since she couldn't be at 2 places at once, that I could pretty easily take this debrief and she could go and be a part of that meeting. So that's where she is tonight. But we did want an opportunity to debrief with you on the Spring Pathways Tour from last month. We did we met at the ribbon cutting for segment H2, and then we got on our bikes and rode from there to 10-mile road along the 5 Mile Creek Pathway. We just wanted to follow up with you and really ask the questions of, what did you like? And maybe more particularly, if there's any lessons learned or things we would change for next year. Not that we would do the same tour, but we're just looking for feedback while it's fresh on to think about for the next tour. So I would just open it up for discussion.
I'll discuss. I liked the fact that we stopped at different locations and that Kim was there to explain things that were happening along the pathway. And that we were picked up at the end so that we could actually take our time getting from one location to the next. So Because before we rode back. I liked it. And that we drove by a couple sites too. It was nice.
Yeah, we did drive by the Limp Larkwood pathway on our way back.
Yeah.
I couldn't have asked for better weather. I don't
We
know
had
how
the
we
only
hit it,
window.
because it was bad before and it was bad after, but somehow we hit the weather just right. So, doing a bike tour in April is always a little bit sketchy, and we lucked out. So,
Madam President,
Yes.
I always enjoy the tour. I always think it's great. It's really nice getting to hear the updates and see them firsthand as we're there, because it helps you relate to the information a lot more. The only thing I think I remember from the tour was just that when the tire blew out, that it would have helped to have a whistle or something. So we talked about maybe doing some kind of way so that the rest of the team doesn't take off. But I don't know, has that ever happened before? That was my second tour, so
Yeah.
that was a first.
It was the first.
then it's probably not necessary. But
Yeah.
but Craig was a great sport, and
Well, actually, it worked out okay because I wasn't far from home, so I could blitz up there and then still follow the tour around after it was.
So you're saying that was a plan.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah, he probably reached down and popped his own tires.
Yeah, right.
Going,
I'm gonna
"No."
go home now.
This is my turn off.
That's awesome.
Should have waited a few hundred yards though. Then
Yeah.
it would have been at the turnoff.
Yeah. That's good. Anything else?
Any other thoughts, or, we should have some new projects underway this year to go and see next year. So we'll wait and talk about the exact route for next year as we get closer. But just wanted to open it up for any feedback. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm actually going to come up for the next one. All right, so the next item on our agenda, 6B, is the NPR Master Plan Goals and Objectives Update. And in your all-commission goals, just as a reminder, we do have, let's see, what number is it? Right there, number 9. Discuss progress on goals and objectives in the NPR Master Plan. So that's what I'm here to do tonight. There is a report in the packet. I don't know if hopefully you've had a chance to look it over. What I don't want to do tonight is just read that report to you. So what I want to do is just give an overview, point out what's in there, and maybe hit some highlights of some things that I think are some of the bigger items to me. So in your packets, there you do have under the miscellaneous tab, I believe it is. I think that's the only item in that tab. What you have is an overview of, it says Meridian Parks and Recreation Master Plan, Goals and Objectives with Updates, 2018. So there, in here we have 4 goals. The first goal is to continue to improve organizational efficiencies. That's getting better at what we do. There are 10 objectives under that goal. I think the main one that I want to point out is that very first one, because that's an interesting one to talk about, and that is maintaining our level of service goal. So our level of service, we have a goal of getting to 4 acres per thousand. Our existing level of service has traditionally been 3 acres per thousand. 3 acres per thousand is what our current park impact fee is based on. And as you know, and as we'll see in the next presentation, we have been actively adding to our park space just as much as we realistically can. We opened 2 parks last fall. We're opening a new one in a couple of weeks. We've broken ground on the next one out at South Meridian. The story for me is that in spite of all of those efforts, we continue to lose ground on our acres per thousand metric. we're growing so fast as a city that we are currently unable to build fast enough to gain ground on that goal. Just some quick numbers. We have made some progress. If we go back to 2007, our level of service was at 2.04 acres per thousand, so basically 2 acres per thousand. At the end of 2017, so after adding Rita Husky and Keith Bird Legacy Park, with the adopted population at the time of 98,000, I think 300, if I remember right, our level of service would be 2.76. So we're up from where we were 10 years ago. But our high point was back in 2012 when we added Kleiner Park. That's the year we added Kleiner Park. And we had a level of service then of 3.16, or basically, just over 3 acres per thousand. When I ran some quick numbers, if I did my math right, if we add 10 more acres onto last year's calculation that got us to 2.76, added 10 more acres for Hillsdale, because we're going to open that in a couple of weeks, but then compare that to the increased population of not 98.3, but 106,000, which is the most recent estimate that I've heard. Even though we're adding acreage, because of the increased population, we actually drop again to 2.65 acres per thousand. So that's a challenge for us, and I think it's something we're always monitoring as a litmus test. It doesn't mean the sky's falling. I mean, we're obviously adding some great parks and great amenities, so I don't want to overplay that metric, but it's a level of service standard that we seek to maintain, and that our park impact fee is based on. So we continue to try and grow the park system. Like we've also broken ground in South Meridian, but I think that's an important one for us to watch and keep an eye on, because all city services, parks, fire, police, others, we all have these standards and levels of service that we are trying to maintain so we don't decrease in our quality of life and level of service standards as we grow, and that's an important one to me. So, like I say, the sky's not falling. But it's interesting to note that in spite of all the growth, I would think just anecdotally that we must be making some great headway and progress, but we're growing so fast that that's not the case. So,
Madam President? Oh,
Yes.
go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead. Steve, just for my knowledge and maybe the rest of us, when do you start adding the numbers? When the park is officially opened, or at acquisition or donation? I'm just trying to get an idea of timing on
timing
acreage.
wise, we tend to count it when it's open, because it's developed parkland. We have other numbers for property that we own as future parkland that's not developed, and we'll look at, okay, how much land do we own? If that were developed, what would our level of service be?
So you have
in terms
an
of-
actual versus projected.
Yeah, although it's
Potential.
tough to project because we also don't know what the population will be
Right.
when it's developed. But you can look at,
You can look at
what would it be
historicals,
today if it
yeah.
were developed, and if you have a population projection for, if you think it's going to be built 10 years out, and you can look at it that way too. So.
Steve, what's the optimal, I know years ago, it's funny how things change, but when we first started the parks, we figured max population at 90,000. Well, we're well over that now.
Yeah.
But, so what's the optimum? I know years ago we talked about 7 acres per thousand. What is
That's an
the
interesting
norm
question.
and our goal?
I believe a good stretch goal for us is to get to 4. Now, let me back up. If you were to ask most communities nationally what a good goal is, the number I hear most often is 10. 10 acres per thousand is the most often quoted goal that I've heard. Now, I've also asked NRPA, National Recreation and Park Association, is there a national standard that you guys set as the bar? And they say no. They say some people think that 10 acres per thousand is our national standard, but it's not, because we recognize that every community is different. So if others are at 10, we're at 2.75-ish, but yet we don't feel that underserved, right? We feel pretty good about where we're at. Why is that? One thing I've learned is that there are many different ways that people count this metric. What we count is what we own and is developed. Others may count, so for example, Foothills open space that they own, but it's not developed the way a Kleiner Park or a Settlers Park is developed. Others, because they have agreements with the school district, or others count school grounds toward their metric. So I'm less concerned with the number and just knowing what feels right for us. And I know that NRPA also would encourage us to think that way. One of the things we tried to do is look at what I would call our effective level of service. What I mean by that is, if we did, our level of service as a citizen feels much higher than the 2.5 to 3 acres per thousand, because there are a lot of private neighborhood parks in most communities. There are school parks. There are parks like Fuller Park that are owned by Ward. So if we added everything together, what's our level of service then? And I don't have an exact number for you, but the last time I looked at that, it was around the 8 acres per thousand. So, there's more out there than just what we own, and that does add to what, to a citizen, is open space that they would use. So I'm comfortable with right now, I look at that goal of 4, and I'm just thinking, man, would I like to get back to 3, But because of the way we count it as developed parkland, and not just open land that we own but is not developed, and not these other things, I'm comfortable with the goal that we have of, let's try and maintain at least 3, but our stretch, if we want to stretch and increase our level of service, let's see if we can get to towards 4.
Is there any headway on Borup, or how's the city services going that direction?
City services are not yet getting close to there. It's funny, it's felt like it's 5 years out for 15 years now, but our focus right now is on the south and the South Meridian Regional Park, but I think beyond that, I think that West Regional Park out at the Borup property would be next. Timing wise, it's hard to say exactly, but it still feels about 5 years out. One of the problems is, instead of just moving west to that, the further north area has to bring a sewer trunk further west and then down. So there's quite a bit of development that would have to happen to bring sewer to that location. We can talk about building the park before sewer gets there, like we are right now in South Meridian, and planning for sewer connections when available. So I think that's a future conversation that we can have. Any other questions on level of service? Yeah.
Have we looked at any of our existing parks and marked them for possibly expansion, like if there's an area near them? I'm thinking Settlers with the parking lot that people park in, but now we have that new parking lot. Like, if we ever buy that and add a field and be much cheaper and add some extra field space? Is that ever a
It's definitely on the radar. That is an expensive piece of property. We have looked at it, but I would hate to see it just disappear. The school district currently owns it. So the overflow parking that we have is based on the school district owning that. Past plans have been to develop an elementary school there, and that parking would be designed in a way that would be available as overflow parking for Settlers Park when school's not in session. There's been some question lately about whether an elementary school would actually be built there. If it's not and it does go up for sale, then I think we need to look pretty hard at is the cost worth it? Because it's a pretty important piece to us because of that parking.
Okay, I was just trying to think of if there's anything we're considering.
Yeah, we're always looking. For example, next to the Borat property that Commissioner Steele was mentioning, we recently bought, was it 17 acres right next to it, to expand that from 30 acres to 47 acres. That's not an existing park in the way you're asking. That is still a future park, but we are looking for those opportunities to expand.
You know what park they're talking about?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought that was the new West one altogether, is what I thought that was. That wasn't named yet, the 44-acre park. Is that what you were referencing with Commissioner Steele?
So, yeah, we refer to it as the Borup property because Keith Borup was a previous P&Z commissioner who made wasn't a full donation, but a reduced sale of that property to the city several years ago. And we own that property as a future park. So we had 30 acres that were purchased from Mr. Borup. And then from Mark Bottles, we purchased another 17 acres just a few years ago. And so now we've got 47 acres out there to be developed instead of the 30.
We're going to call that is it Bora?
We don't have the name
okay.
yet. The park name is still TBD.
Thank you.
Yeah, until it has a name, our internal shorthand is to refer to it as the Borup property because that's who we got it from. Any other questions on level of service? I'm going to skip then to goal 2. And I'll just note as I'm flipping pages that a lot of these objectives under goal 1 have to do with marketing, communications, things that Shelley does, technology to improve customer service, like the new software that people can now, reserve picnic shelters online and things like that are important to us. And probably lastly, the volunteer program that continues to expand. But I want to jump right now to goal 2, which is increasing financial opportunities. And there's probably 2 things that I think are most important to me under this goal right now. One is the new impact fee ordinance that's going to start a new study. And Commissioner Nesmith sits on the impact fee committee. And represents this group and us as a whole on that committee to make sure that park impact fees are represented and considered well in that process. The impact fee ordinance is objective 2.2. If you're looking at, starts on page 9 and then most of the write-ups on page 10. But I do continue to serve on the impact fee committee. As a staff resource. John Nesmith is actually a voting member of that group. And earlier this year, I think it's worth noting that the existing impact fee was raised to its currently allowable level. I think that was a good move. But the important thing for everyone here to know is this summer there will be a consultant hired and an entirely new study started. So that a year from now, we'll probably have a completely new study and a revised and updated impact fee. So I just want you to be aware of that process. And I don't know, Commissioner Nesmith, if you have anything you want to add as you've been to the meetings in the last month?
No, not really. I commend the city council for approving it and be interesting to see what the study finds and moving forward.
Okay, so we will keep you posted as a group on the impact fee study as it moves forward. It should be kicking off this summer.
Wasn't there a study just done a couple of years ago?
It's been more than that already. Time flies.
5 years.
So yeah, the study is good for 5 years, and I think it's probably been 4.
Yeah, 4 and change.
Trying to get this one done before it expires. So. The other one that I want to point out under this goal is 2.4, which is related to cost recovery and pricing philosophy. When we took our fees recently to the city council related to home court, they asked for a specific look at the home court pricing and cost recovery analysis. So we are kicking off an internal look at that with the finance department's new financial analyst. So our first meeting is tomorrow, so we're going to meet with him and find out what he can do to help us analyze that and take some information back to the city council that they've requested. Timing-wise, they want us to bring something back prior to the citywide fee update that usually comes to them in the fall around September, October timeframe. So right now I have a goal in my mind of getting back to them by August with whatever this process is that we're about to kick off. But we're going to look first at home court and then maybe expand out from there. So goal 3 is continuing to improve our programs and service delivery. There's only one objective under this, but 6 different action items. I think that what I want to point out here, and you're going to get a more detailed update on this next month, but the city has a strategic plan with strategic goals. One of those goals that we are working on is related to this very thing, which is analyzing our programs, identifying what we do, where are the gaps, what do other cities do, and kind of create a matrix of opportunities and things that, what are we doing, filling well, what are the needs that we see, how might we fill those. Colin's not here tonight. We actually sent him to the town hall as well. But he will be bringing you an update on that very point at our June meeting. So next month. Any questions on that? Then jump into goal 4. There are 12 objectives under this one, and this one deals with maintaining and improving our facilities and amenities. This is where new parks come in. This is where we talk about the fact that we added Keith Bird Legacy Park, we added Rita Husky Park, we're just about to open Hillsdale Park, and we're breaking ground on South Meridian Regional Park. This is where indoor facilities like the home court come in, and the work we're doing there to provide recreation opportunities and plan. Right now, what's going on is the Y is getting ready to move out at the end of this month. So there's a lot of coordination going on, and we've talked here about Bay 5, and I have an update for you later on that. But the home court and the Bay 5 work plugs in here. All of Ken's work on pathways and the things we just talked about on projects that are going to be happening, the Linda Road expansion, the Lemp Larkwood pathway, the easements we're trying to get along James Court, all of that falls under this particular goal. And the other one that I wanted to highlight, which decided I was just going to look and see which objective it was specifically, but there's one in here for the ADA accessibility. It's 4.7. And we are working very hard on addressing the needs that were identified in the study that was done last year. And we're making progress, a lot of progress on those goals right now as well. So I think that's important to note. The rest of the items all have little updates in them and statements for you to read and review, and if you have any questions about them, I guess I'll just stand for any questions now.
Madam President?
Yes.
I just have a question when we talk about the ADA compliance. The purple
Yeah.
swings that are at Settlers, are those for special, or are they just like a fun, different type of swing?
Yeah, they're both. I mean,
Okay.
it is anyone's allowed to sit in it. It is a fun, different swing, but it is specifically designed to accommodate special needs.
Okay, I saw someone using it recently, and I thought, I just didn't know. I was like, because that's really important, and I can't think of any other parks that have those.
Yeah,
So.
and that is our universally accessible playground focus there at Adventure Island Playground, and so that has that special swing there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, then I think we can move to the next one, which I think is also me.
It is.
It's the Steve Show tonight.
That's right.
Actually, I'm excited to get onto the Mike Show at the end because he's got some fun things to share with you. Go ahead, you can. So this next item I hope will be a lot of fun for you. It was for me. Really enjoyed going through this, and we just shared this exact presentation with City Council last night. So every year we do what's called strategic presentation, and we will be going over, well, let me just go to the next slide. This is my 10th year as director. So what I decided to do with this presentation, different from other years, is I wanted to take a look back. Where were we 10 years ago, and what have we accomplished together with the commission and the department and the council over that 10 years, and it's pretty remarkable. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about some of our strategic plan goals. I have an update for you on the South Meridian Park naming survey that's been out and recently closed. And then we'll finish with some time-lapse photo or videos that we did of our new construction at the park. So, like I say, hopefully this will be a little bit of fun. So if we go back 10 years to 2008, that was the year that we started our partnership with Heritage Middle School, and we dedicated those ball fields. As a result of getting that, we were able to expand our sports leagues to include spring and fall girls fast pitch. We also expanded women's volleyball and basketball, and started an adult dodgeball league that was a lot of fun while it lasted. It kind of lived its life, and we've moved on since, but that was fun. 2008 was also our very first Independence Day Festival for 4th of July. That was the first year we did that in conjunction with the Speedway. We opened Renaissance Park in South Meridian, and you can see Craig Steele there, proof that he was here 10 years ago, at the Heroes Park Phase 1 and 2 dedications. Also in 2008, I was also here as interim director in 07, and while I was here in 07, we opened the Meridian Youth Baseball Complex in Settlers Park in 2008. That won an award. And probably the award I think is really fun is that one on the lower left. That year, Nickelodeon actually put out a survey for the best park and playground for the Boise area, and it was
Oh, wow.
in Boise, but it was everything in the Treasure Valley was considered, and Settlers Park was and Adventure Island Playground were the ones nominated for the whole region that year, which was a lot of fun. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip over a lot of the individual awards, but try not to read every one to you. But there's so many fun stories on here. 2009, the next year, we opened Gordon Harris Park in South Meridian. We also completed and then commemorated the Adventure Island Playground. And I don't know who that young guy is on the lower left with no gray hair, but I know, it's kind of ridiculous.
No.
I guess this is what 10 years in this job can do to you. But we opened the Meridian Community Center in downtown. We opened that. It had been the Boys and Girls Club just prior to us, and prior to that, it was the Meridian Police Department. But we were able to convert it from the Boys and Girls Club over to the community center we currently use in 2009. And then Settlers Village Square Phase 1 is code for the horseshoe pits in Settlers Park. Phase 2, which we'll get to later, was the tennis courts. But we opened the horseshoe pits that year. Also in 2009, we opened our first dog park. This is not the dog park in Story Park. This was the canine grass area over at the Meridian Police Station, if you remember that. That was our first effort at getting some form of dog park open to see what the demand was like. As you might imagine, the demand was high. It was tough to keep the grass alive. And we learned many lessons there that we implemented in the new dog park later. We purchased the South Meridian Regional Park land that year in 2009. This was during the recession. We got a great deal on that land. We purchased that. It's just interesting to see the progression that we purchased it then, and we're developing it now. The other thing, and then movie night, we'd been already doing it a few years, but we were an early adopter of that type of program nationally, and we got some national recognition that year at NRPA and in the American City and Council magazine that is a national publication for that program. 2010, we dedicated some new amenities in Centennial Park. I think that's when we got the Neos and some of those other things. We dedicated the shelter and some things there to Terry Smith, who was a very active Meridian citizen when he passed away. Heroes Park got its Phase 3 improvements, which was the playground and the shelter next to it. We added a picnic shelter to Gordon Harris, and our very first community block party kicked off that year, which we continue to this day. Also in 2010, we did our initial planning for that Borat property that we were just talking about earlier, looking at everything from softball fields to rodeo grounds to dog park. We added our flag football league. I think maybe my favorite one on here is that lower middle one, the Children's Winterland Festival. Started that year, and all of my kids are in that picture. They all helped out. Some of them are in the costumes, and they've all grown up quite a bit since then. 2011, we did some upgrades to the community center. Did some ADA-related improvements to the entryway. We added the drinking fountains. Did some flooring upgrades inside. We also implemented our smoke-free parks policy. That was a big one that year. That was a lot of discussion, a big policy for us. We started our first Holiday Classic volleyball tournament. That's the one that we hold the tournament, and the money goes to buy gifts for needy children in the city. We dedicated the Rock of Honor in Kleiner Park, as well as the Diana Winston Moore Pathway segment. Also in 2011, we made some key pathway connections. Our focus then was not so much on 5 Mile Creek Pathway as much as where do a lot of existing pathway pieces exist where a small connection is needed to get them to connect. And you can see the green lines were existing, the red lines were the pieces that we added to connect those up. Now, if I had to pick one highlight from the 10 years, this is it. That's why I get this own slide. But in 2012, we opened Julius M. Kleiner Memorial Park, and what a highlight that has been. See the picture of Treg Burnt. He's not here tonight, but I love how the whole community came together. There were signs like the one you see there from Dirty Harry's Car Wash all over town, churches and businesses, and everyone thanking Mr. Kleiner for the donation of the park, and that was just a wonderful event. But that wasn't it. Also in 2012, we opened the segment that attaches to the one that we just opened. So this segment H1, the one that we just opened that we wrote on last month was H2, and it was the part that connected to this. We did our first visit to what we hope will be a future park, Margaret Aldopi Park. It's currently got some challenges that I'll show you here in a later slide. But then the lower left, that's what we've been talking about with the Borat property, and then we added on that 17 and a half acres next to it because had the opportunity to do that. Currently undeveloped and is a future park for us that we own. That was also the year that we started the new pathway signage and standards for that came through our pathways, our signage and amenities committee at the time. Unplug and Be Outside Week, which you just heard from Shelley, that's this week for us. Our very first one was in 2012, so that's been going on every year since since 2012. We also did our very first pilot program for recycling in Settlers Park that year. Added things like our summer camps on the big bandshell stage in Kleiner Park for musical theater. Won some engineering awards for Kleiner Park that year as well. Then 2013, we got our proclamation passed for Gene Kleiner Day. That's become an event that we do every year and have every year since then. We did many upgrades in Kleiner Park, including the fountains that you see in that photo. That's also the year that we opened our maintenance facility that you see in the upper right. And to Jessica's question about the Meridian Youth Baseball overflow parking, this 2013 was the year that we got that agreement with the school district and added that overflow parking there that year. And the lower left, Camp Maritamu, 2013, this is the year that we went from one site. Up until then, we had one summer camp site. Demand started increasing. We decided it was time to expand to a second site, so let's have one in the north, one in the south. Sienna Elementary is in South Meridian. We added that. Got our agreement with the school district for a mutual fee waiver, so we no longer have to pay for our time in the schools, which has been great for us. Started our goose management program and also started our park ambassador program that same year. Also in that year, 2013, this is the year we started the Winter Lights Parade for Christmas. There had already been a Christmas parade. It was hosted by the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce decided they were no longer going to do that event, and we took it on, moved it from Saturday afternoon to the evening so that we could do a lit parade for Christmas, and we've been doing it each year since 2013. What's that?
Coldest day in the history of
It was
the
pretty cold.
Winter Lights Parade. I do know it was -20.
We've had a couple of really cold ones.
Now, this one was the coldest,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, the year let's see, was Gene Kleiner Grand Marshal this year or the next year? I don't remember, but the year Gene Kleiner was Grand Marshal was really cold.
That might have been. I know this one that nothing was sticking because it was so cold that
Yeah.
the magnets on the tape.
Yeah. We've had a couple of years of really kind of mild weather, so I'm going to knock on some wood.
It was so cold, the Bluetooth on my phone wouldn't work.
Really? It was cold.
Poor William was gonna freeze to death, I thought, up on that float.
Yeah.
Also in 2013, on the sports side, we added summer volleyball, we added that Red Eye men's softball tournament, new fall softball league, lots of children's multi-sports camps. And then the upgrades to our water features and splash pads at Generations Plaza and Settlers Park both happened that year. 2014, we took on the Idaho Avenue sidewalk improvements. Park-wise, we opened these new amenities to 8th Street Park. 8th Street Park had this is the one next to the water department on 8th Street. Was never much more than a grass area around the water department. There was a swing set there, but no restrooms. If kids needed to go to the restroom, they had to go home.
They had a porta potty there, the kid burned it down.
But we got a new restroom, picnic shelter, playground added and opened that into 2014. Got our water rights for the 77-acre park, added a spring men's league basketball, and then the lower right one I love, that's the year we also opened that bridge tower section of 5 Mile Creek Pathway that we rode on last month. Also in 2014, we added the restroom in Centennial Park. We launched our Kleiner Park Live series at the Bandshell and partnered with the library for our summer reading program. The next year was 2015. That year we moved out of the little dog park area next to the canine, or in the canine facility of the police department, and opened the Storybark Park. Boy, is that, I believe that acre for acre, it's the most used park. I mean, there's certainly more people in Settlers Park and more people in Kleiner Park, but in terms of users per acre, there's nothing that's loved more than that dog park. I mean, it is really heavily used. That's also the year we opened Settlers Village Square Phase 2 at the tennis complex, and we dedicated the Ben Kleiner statue in Kleiner Park. 2015 was also a big year for us for the master plan. You know, that was a big, big deal for this commission and us as a department. So Christmas of 2015, 2.5 years ago, we adopted the master plan. It had been, you know, a very full year-long process of surveys and focus groups and analyses of our park system, and that continues to guide us today and will for several years to come. I think the other one I want to point out is that lower right one. You know, we've been making improvements all along to Kleiner Park, and that was the year we added the awning and got some shade in front of that concessions building, which was really important to this commission and particularly the users of the concessions building at the time. 2016, we're getting a little closer to today. The Meridian Youth Farmers Market debuted out in front of City Hall. We did some improvements to our community block party and the Gene Kleiner Day. Perhaps my favorite is that lower left on this slide, which is, that's the year we purchased the home court and we held its grand reopening just before Christmas in 2016. And then it's also the year we partnered with the first participatory budget project with MIAC and got the outdoor gym in Tully Park. But also in 2016, that's the year that we added the Kleiner Disc Golf Course in Kleiner Park. We got our agreement with the Boys and Girls Club to use their new gym right across the street here. We upgraded the lights in Harold and Cox Field, which is over here in Story Park. We added the trees for shade in Kleiner Park. And we resurfaced Adventure Island Playground, and that's the year Eldon Gray passed away. He was significant in the development of Kleiner Park, and we had a memorial ceremony for him. Now we're up to next year. Story Park restaurant, or next year, did I say next year? Last year, 2017, last year, the Story Park restroom got upgraded to meet ADA standards. I'm not going to spend too much time on Rita Husky and Keith Bird because I've got some videos here to show you shortly towards the end of this, but we opened those. We completed our audit, not the work that the audit required, but we completed the audit of our park system to determine what the needs were to meet ADA standards. We also did the time capsule in the Rock of Honor. We added shade. This was on the top right to Bear Creek Park in the form of a picnic shelter next to the ball fields. They use that for tournaments and lots of different things. We did many improvements in the home court, including the branding, the Meridian signage. We're about to put a new sign up where you see the Y logo there. As soon as the Y leaves here in a few weeks, we'll be putting up a home court logo there. And because of that, home court, we also have more recreational offerings, including indoor pickleball and badminton and the open gym for everyone in the city. And now we're up to this year. So this year we've already had 3 things to celebrate. The Journey of Heroes art sculpture opened in March. The 5 Mile Creek Pathway H2 opened in April. And then just last week, the Kleiner Memorial Plaza was dedicated in Kleiner Park. So lots of amazing things going on. And at Idaho Recreation and Parks Association this spring, the Keith Bird Legacy Park won the Outstanding Park Award for the state. Our Park Ambassador program won the Outstanding Innovative Program Award for the state. And then it's not on here because we have a lot of staff awards that aren't also on here. We had to pick and choose what goes on the slides, but I think it's worth mentioning that Colin Moss won the Outstanding Recreation Professional for the state as well.
Oh.
So that was neat. We've got the Tree City USA. That event happened at River Valley Elementary. This was our 16th year as a Tree City USA. We have all the pathway improvements underway for this year. And then this year we go from 2 sites for summer camp to 3 sites for summer camp. So we can continue the expansion and the growth to try and meet the needs of our citizens. And I think that's the last slide for the 10 years, but I just want to pause there for a minute and just say, wow, right? I mean, that's a lot of things that we've done together. And it's pretty remarkable and pretty rewarding to take a step back and say, where have we been? So, the strategic plan, I'll go through this fairly fast. We have 3 goals. This one is actually marked off as complete because it took us, it was dealing with public sports facilities. We acquired the home court, and then the goals that were written dealt with getting the South Meridian Regional Park project to its contract for construction, and getting it to construction was the end goal of that particular objective. And then 5A4 in the strategic plan is about Discovery Parks. This originally was focused on South Meridian Regional Park, but then was changed by the city council, expanded to this is the one we've been talking about recently, about theming our neighborhood parks. And so the first real example of theming an existing neighborhood, or not neighborhood park, but existing park, it's a community park, is Heroes Park, and getting the Heroes art added there. And then like we talked about just last month, I believe it was, this commission has selected Champion Park as the next park that you'd like to work on. So our next step is to explore partnerships, most likely with the Arts Commission, like we did for Heroes Park, and look to them for a funding source and timeline to be able to do something there. And we'll be back to you with more on that once we have something back from them. And I probably don't need to spend a lot of time on this because this is what I talked about with Colin doing the gap analysis on our recreation programs. And our next step on this one is to come to you as the Parks and Rec Commission on June 12th with an update on that as well. So let's talk about South Meridian Regional Park naming results. This survey was open for the last 2 months. It just closed a couple weeks ago at the end of April. And as you recall, the commission had reviewed the names, made the recommendation of Exploration Park. We took that to the city council. They decided they would like to put it out to the citizens and put all 4 names that we had plus another category. We talked about that here, and we did it for 1 year, just using 1 month, just using social media, and then it also went out the next month in all of the city water bills with the newsletter there. And I was impressed. I was surprised at how big of the response jumped once it started going out through the water and sewer bills. Because it showed it did have an impact. If Shelley was here, I'd ask her the actual number of responses, but as I recall, it was in the 600 to 800. So we're not talking a sample size of only 20 people responded. It's also not 50,000, but it's a pretty respectable response, I think. So here's the results. Of the 4 names that were put out there, 25% were in favor of Discovery Park as their first choice. Exploration Park came in second at 19%. Innovation Park 16%, Highland Park 12%, and then under other, Parky McParkface made a strong showing at 10% of the vote. Steam Park got 8% of the vote, as did Meridian Park. So I showed these results to council last night. There was no specific action taken. Wanted to show these to you tonight. The idea is that we'll probably go forward next week, and Michael will take them a naming request to say, okay, here's the results. What would you like to do? And I'd just like to pause here for any feedback from you. Are you inclined to favor the Discovery Park name based on the community's response? Do you still favor the Exploration Park name? Any feedback you want to give me is welcome.
Steve, I think if they knew the.
Is your microphone on?
I think if they knew the problems that we have with Discovery Park being a couple other places have that name, it could cause some confusion. I still lean towards Exploration Park.
I think maybe it's all the work we put into getting to
there.
Exploration Park that is kind of being pushed to the side. And so this is the vote, but we also took a tremendous amount of time to come up with that.
We did.
So that's where I kind of have a slight issue with it.
Okay.
Madam President, I think we all like Discovery Park, the name. It's
Right.
just because of the local, issues with it already having those existing places. So I just wonder if all the people really know we have a Discovery Elementary. Boise has the Discovery Center with the park outside that. There's just so much confusion. But at the same time, I mean, they voted, at least the 600 to 800 people did. So
Yeah.
did they know those things and just feel it was, unique enough to have an actual outdoor park in Meridian that
I-
they would identify? Or
I don't think they thought about it. I don't think it was brought up in the survey. It's just, here's the names and.
I think some did. We've had some feedback that mirrors your concerns. And some people, I think, feel like it shouldn't be on the table because of the conflicts, and others feel like it's fine. Meridian can have its own Discovery Park, and it's fine. So anyway, there's the official results of the survey. So we'll take that along with your, it sounds like continued recommendation as a group for liking Exploration Park. But I think maybe, Jessica, you said it the best. This commission likes the name Discovery Park. You just see the conflicts with other names and have those concerns that lead you to favor that name Exploration Park. Is that fair?
We'd like to be unique because this is Meridian,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Okay.
really, that's what it comes down to is originality, which is why we went with exploration. Yeah.
The vote's important to look at, but if you look at the raw numbers, more people voted for other than they
Yeah.
did for Discovery
They
as
did.
a percentage and a total. So
This is true.
it is one data point, but I think your staff, the city council, the folks that recommend and make decisions also carry a pretty good percentage of a vote, if you're going to call it that. So if you just look at the
True.
numbers, other one on this poll.
Thank
is
you.
true.
This is true.
I like it.
Was Parking McParfe's really is that for real?
It's real.
Is that because you mentioned it?
No, I don't want to know why. Maybe everyone was watching this streaming video or they just came up with it on themselves, because
Parking
the name was not on the survey. It was just, if you have another favorite name, let us know. And 10% of the votes came up with that name.
I am somewhat impressed by the 10%.
Yeah.
Well, kudos to you guys for sending it out. These are
Yeah.
always a difficult and nail-biting time when you send it, especially for 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit. And then with some experience on the water bill, typically the responses you get back from the water bill are folks that enjoy reading paper, not the folks, there's about 39,000 water bills that go out.
Sure.
So if you got back 800, that's less than 2%. Typically, those 2%, they're going to read the bill, may or may not visit our parks.
I don't read it.
So,
Yeah. We've also been promoting it at a multitude of other locations, including Coffee with the Mayors and town halls and and Facebook posts and the website. So I think we'll move on. Seems to be frozen. There we go. Okay, current challenges, things where we are focused on working on today. Just 2 slides here. One is that the Bay 5 home court improvements. We did go to council with the recommendation that the commission made for the project as proposed. There were a variety of different opinions on council, from liking the proposal as it came forward to wanting to pick and choose a variety of different pieces, from the restrooms being important to the restrooms not being important, but the to let's do the flooring, the new multipurpose flooring, to let's use the flooring that's there now. I don't have clear direction to give back to you as to where I think that's going. Where it is going is we are creating a menu of options through the budget enhancement process, and it'll be part of the budget discussions next month. South Meridian Regional Park Phase 1, top right, is under construction. That's a drone shot taken of the site last week. And we are actively working to secure ACHD's final permits for the right-of-way, as well as DEQ and Central District Health for the septic system. And those are needed urgently and imminently. We've done just about most of the grading we can do until we get those. So those are really important and very actively being worked on. The Rail with Trail pathway continues to be a current challenge, both in the realm of the regional effort to connect Nampa to Boise through Meridian, but also our smaller Phase 1 project and the land acquisition and thing that's needed as part of that project. And then Margaret Aldapi Park, this is the one that's down on the Boise River. Could be our first, Boise River frontage park. The challenge there is that with last year's Snowmageddon event and the major spring runoff, there was a riverbank breach at the neighboring property that came through their pond and is spilling over into what on this photo is the right-hand pond would be part of the park. So there's a lot of flooding that continues there today, and we don't own the land today. So the private property owners that own those properties today are working to resolve that issue before that would move forward. But just want to make you aware of the challenge that's out there. The other ones are that 5 Mile Creek pathway trailhead at 10 Mile Road. And like I mentioned, that's where Kim is tonight at the ACHD open house. The Kleiner Bandshell Shade has been an ongoing topic of discussion with this commission. And we've taken that to the council with a variety of different thoughts and opinions. That one will also be going through the budget process. And then we talked about the ADA upgrades. This was the photo I wanted to show you. I took these photos last Friday. These are in Chateau Park, and just one example of the ADA upgrades that are going on. The bottom right is of a ramp going down into the playground area. The photo right to its left is the parking lot access from the handicap parking spaces and making sure that meets all the slope requirements. So those projects we've been working on several through the winter, now into the spring, and making a lot of headway on those. So this is the last section of this presentation. Lots of recent park construction, including Keith Bird Legacy Park. And Rachel, if you try and bring up that video, hopefully it will work for us. It defaults to a low quality, so on each one of these we need to raise it up a little bit to make it full screen. Only it could really happen that fast. So that was Keith Bird Legacy Park. Kind of fun to see it come together. The next one is Rita Husky Park, and we've got a time-lapse video of that one as well. Don't you love that sign? That's a great sign. And the last one we want to share with you is the one that we're just about to open in a couple of weeks, and that is Hillsdale Park. So we're really excited to get this park open and available to the public. Shelley mentioned this at the beginning, but it's really worth reiterating, and that is, please come. Please join us for this celebration, the grand opening celebration. Help us advertise it. Bring your friends. Kind of excited for the band that's coming, the Southwest Surfers. They're kind of the premier Beach Boys tribute band for down in Arizona, Marty's favorite band that he's bringing up, and they'll be kind of the main event. But there's classic cars. There's going to be lots of games and food trucks and events, things for everyone to do. So hope you come out and enjoy it and just help us celebrate the opening of the park. So with that. Thank you, and I'll stand for any questions on this one.
Question?
Madam President?
Did you enjoy the 10-year look back?
I thought it was great.
I like seeing familiar faces, and that's cool. Did you have something to say? Okay.
I guess one question is, what kind of feedback did you get from the city council when you got done with it, Steve?
The only question was on the agreement that we have with the Boys and Girls Club and how that was going and what our use of their gym is like, which we actively use for our volleyball program about 4 nights a week. We feel like that partnership's going great for us. Lots of positive comments about the look back and just kind of reminding ourselves of the accomplishments we have made. And also a reminder that, a lot of you can see the progression of things. Kleiner Park didn't just happen one year and was done. There were things added to it consistently in many years after it. Things like seeing the growth of the sports leagues or the events as they grew. Also the progression of buying the land for the South Meridian Park and then doing the well, and there's the progression over the years of getting to where we are today. Just some value in the perspective that brings in looking at those snapshots over time.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Okay. So my last one for tonight is and you're going to, some of these will sound familiar because our budget enhancements are based on a lot of the needs that we just talked about with current challenges and things like that and recent discussions. But I did want to at least inform you and let you know about the enhancements that we are taking forward next month to the city council. So our first one has to do with the home court, Bay 5, improvements and staffing. We are proposing the project as you have recommended. That project includes the office, front desk, entryway, and access improvements out the front as kind of one grouping of improvements. The second area would be the restroom remodel. The third area would be for this photo, that multi-purpose flooring, getting that upgraded, getting the area repainted, and adding some curtains to divide the area since we aren't able to build walls and HVAC and all those things we talked about. And then the humidity condensation improvements that we talked about. This is not just for Bay 5, but like the additional zoo fans and the louvers and fans to help with the condensation issues. And then the smaller item just for all the other costs for testing and permitting and things like that. So we've got an enhancement ready to go forward for that, and we will take it forward to council and discuss all the pieces and parts, and we'll report back how that goes. The second one is, so this is the red line is H2. That's the pathway we just rode on. And as you know, that orange line is what we want to talk about. We stopped on that orange line briefly, right next to Fairview, and talked about the fact that that piece of the connection, oh, and there is Kim. We're just talking about the enhancement for the Fairview Avenue connection. We stopped there and we talked about the fact that, this connection from the end where H2 meets Fairview Avenue over to the traffic signal could really be strengthened. I don't see this be getting constructed next year. The enhancement will just include some design and potentially some right-of-way purchase money if needed. So it would be a year of design and right-of-way, and then if that goes well, then we'll come back the next year and ask for the construction dollars. The next one is where Kim's just coming back from, and that is the 10 Mile Road project and the potential trailhead there. Council asked for a variety of different options when Kim presented this to them. One option being full build out of the project as proposed. They also asked for a couple of different options that included just the widening of the bridge, partnership with ACHD, and let the actual trailhead come later. And there was a third version that I believe was just the design and engineering part. Does that sound right? Okay. So those were the options that they wanted to talk about, and we will take forward an enhancement that gives them those options from the full meal deal down to the other pieces and parts. South Meridian Regional Park, we have an opportunity, and Mike will talk about more details here later, so I won't belabor this, but as you know, a lot of the amenities for phase one that we wanted to do had to get value engineered out, not because we didn't want them, because we didn't have the money to do it all. But we do have park impact fees available to us today that we can add some of the things we lost back in, including the 2 additional picnic shelters, including the globes, the water globes on the splash pad. The splash pads, the base of the splash pad is, and the spray fountains are in phase one as is, but the globes got value engineered out, but we'd like to put them back in. Also, pathways, the photos of Kleiner Park, but the idea is that the pathways could come back in, as could the off-leash dog area that got value engineered out. So there's a variety of of different amenities that we'd like to see come back. One of the conversations we need to have with council, we're prepared to take this through the enhancement process just to make it part of the budget process. But we could actually save time and money if we did a budget amendment and just added these things now to the construction project that's going on. So that's a conversation we need to have. The reason why one of the main reasons why that could work is, one, we have the money available through park impact fees because of the growth that we're experiencing. And more importantly, two, the park impact fees don't compete with other projects from other departments for funding. So one of the reasons why in general we don't like budget amendments is because we want to consider the potential projects in relation and priority to the other requests when they're all general fund items. But this is not a general fund request. This is a park impact fee request and could potentially move forward independently. At least we're hoping so. So we have split out a separate enhancement for the maintenance building because we don't think this one needs to be an amendment for this year. This one really can be through the enhancement process and come next year. This is Kleiner Park. The South Meridian one wouldn't be this large. I didn't have a photo of the Settlers Park maintenance building, but probably more along the lines of it. But something that we can run our maintenance operations out of as a major park, which our maintenance philosophy, our model is a hub and spokes, right? So we didn't build the facility on Lanark and Locust Grove to house all of our needs. It's the hub of the wheel, and then all of these major parks have their own satellite facilities with that as its hub. So we need to add a maintenance building to that. And then the Bandshell Shade, I think this is our last one. We've talked about that. Yeah, you know about it. Like I said, a variety of different opinions on council, but we will take it forward through the budget process and promote it as you have recommended. So I think that is my last slide on budget enhancements for the process going forward with council. And I'll just ask if there's any questions.
Madam President,
Yes.
are these prioritized in the way you presented them, Steve, from your staff's perspective and needs?
That's a great question. This is the order they are currently presented in, which is the they tend to look at as the order of priority. Having said that, I think we'd welcome any comments on prioritization if you feel one is more or less important than the order we presented them in.
Just for the work that we've done since I've arrived, I think the shade at Kleiner Park is pretty important. I know you guys have discussed alternative solutions to that in terms of funding, and maybe it's an amendment or sticking in the enhancement process. When that came up last, and I don't mean it's the last priority, but I guess I personally would like to see it moved up if they're prioritized that way.
And shade has always been a top priority for this commission, and we will absolutely reflect that. And we can move it up if, in fact, I'd have a hard time moving it in front of home court, to be honest. I think that those improvements to Bay 5 are way up there for me. But
Well, and these are just suggestions from my experience,
Pathways
not,
is up there.
yeah,
Yeah.
just,
Shade is up there, and so we've got the pathway connections, the South Meridian Park items, and the shade. So I welcome the feedback.
Steve, what about plaques? Do we have budget for those, or are we going to keep doing those, or?
Yes and yes. In fact, we've had quite a time going back and forth on proofs. It's actually already being worked on actively, and Rachel's been taking the lead. We have a new process underway with signs, et cetera, is that correct? And they have a proof back, and do you have an update on timing or anything that you'd like to add?
They haven't given me a timeframe yet, so we have gotten that far.
I can't hear you on the record. Oh.
Wasn't given a time frame just yet, but once we get to that point, then we'll know, so.
But to answer your question, yes, it's in the budget, and yes, we are doing them. Thanks. Okay.
Madam
Good.
President, I'm just very excited to get those amenities back to South Meridian, so
Yeah.
that's really exciting. So we'll have the park, the extra shade. I think that's just great. Plus the water domes, which, do they spray out the top? Is that what they do?
They bubble out the top and run down, and
That's so
kids just kind of hug and hang on them, and the water just kind of flows over.
Coolness.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hug it. Awesome. Any more questions?
So just to confirm, maybe leave the order as is, but I will, even if the order stays as is, take back that this is a top priority for the commission to get the shade. And honestly, if you want it doesn't hurt my feelings at all. If you say, hey, let's just put it as number 2 after the home court. I can ask them to do that.
Mine's just on, you get in those budget conversations, and some things at the bottom are subject. So while you have a top 6 and they're all probably a number 1, the reality is they're not all number 1s.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to, are you going to fall on your sword on a couple, but you're not on the others? And I'm not suggesting that would happen, but I just know how things go in some of those processes, and
We are anti-skin cancer.
that's right.
If I were to
So-
propose, just for a discussion,
Yeah.
taking the band shell shade from number 6 or whatever number it is there, and moving it up to number 2,
Yeah.
would this group like that?
I would.
I think it'd be good.
Okay,
I know that I know that there's discussion about it already, so.
yeah.
That'll
Any
just kinda bring it
objections to
forward.
doing that? Okay,
Anyone?
then I'll actually do that. I don't mind.
I think
doing
that's an easy win, is kind of what I'm pinpointing to. That's an easy win for not just the commission, your team, the council, but for the community. That one seems pretty easy to pull the trigger on.
I think, or Madam President, I think the amenities coming back, I'm super excited, but I mean, that park's not open yet, and Kleiner's already here, so I could see why that, I'm not
Right.
sure what else we're moving around, but, it sounds like, I think that's a top priority for everyone, so
We're just
I don't
gonna
feel
get
like
it
there's
all.
gonna be a lot of pushback from
Yeah.
Kleiner.
Yeah.
on
What's
the
that?
Kleiner park.
We're just gonna
I
get
feel
it
like
all.
That one's gonna be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we want it all, but,
Agreed.
yeah.
Okay. I'll move it up the priority list to be second just after home court.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Next up, we have Mike now, right?
Give Steve a break. He was standing up here for over an hour.
But you know
No, it
what?
was
It
really
wasn't. It wasn't boring. So that's.
No, it was really good. We're actually moving very quickly through
Everybody's
some
still
of this.
awake.
so.
No, I'm just kidding.
So really excited to bring you an update on the active recreation complex at South Meridian Regional Park. And that's the area that has all the, not just the open grass or ball fields, but the shelters, playground, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to launch right in. So if you remember the park design, phase 1 is everything that you see over on the left. That diagonal line is the gas line, the gas company's easement that they have. So we kind of drew that as a phasing line because they're going to come in and replace those gas lines here in the next 3 to 5 years. Really what it is it's a regulatory requirement to thicken the pipe wall once people get around it. So they say there's like 50 or 20 people in 50 consecutive days, then they come in, it starts the clock on the pipe replacement. So the park's going to do that. And sometime in the next 3 to 5 years, they're going to dig those up and put in thicker pipe. So we drew that line right there. So the area that's circled is where the active recreation complex is. Well, let me back up for 1 second here. So just to get reacquainted with the design, there's two lit softball fields, open grass, some berming, an entrance driveway that leads into a parking lot that'll be expanded with future phases. Right now, we did a gravel overflow parking that goes out across the easement. There's two, it's just shaded right now, but there's a couple of driveways that cross the easement and gravel that's beyond it. The gravel we can utilize for permanent parking. The base is built in such a way that that section will still be good. So just to get reacquainted with the design. And so when we set out to kind of think what we want here, we set some goals and objectives for, what's going to make this really cool and unique. And part of that is we wanted a destination, playground, and a recreation complex. People talk about Settlers Park and the playground at Settlers Park as being a destination that, people will drive a distance to take their kids there. And it's really cool, it's really fun, it's free, all those good things. So we wanted a variety of activities to do. We wanted to serve a variety of ages, all the way from toddlers to tweens and teens and, up through the spectrum. Of course, it needed to be fully accessible. We wanted to provide shade. And then to fit the theming of the park, we wanted educational components and unique theming ideas. And of course, we had to keep it under budget. So we think we've kind of hit these items pretty well. So really the layout, and this was the area that was circled on the first slide. And from this, you can get an idea of how each one of these components relate to one another. So the parking lot is at the lower end of this. There's a restroom concession building. The restroom and concession was pretty much patterned after the main restroom at Settlers. The only difference is there's 2 family restrooms instead of 1, and there's also a concession stand. We took into consideration orientation with sun and, tried to keep the serving window away from the hot afternoon sun. We faced the restroom doors towards the playground and all the activities. So if a kid ran over there, you could see him go in and come out and kind of keep an eye on it that way. There's, right now there's 1 picnic shelter. It's a large shelter. And the enhancement that Steve was talking about would be to add 2 more shelters to this area. So there would be 1 over on the left-hand side by the sand and water play, and then 1 right about where the playground sign is. So they'd be kind of clustered together, similar to Kleiner has 2, a big one and another one really close by that active recreation area. So we found that works really well, and we're going to do that again. So each one of these components, so this is the playground that we worked with the landscape architects, staff, the playground manufacturer, and also the playground designers to come up with this. And really in this playground design, there is age diversity. There's an area for toddlers that you'll see. There's also the traditional playground. There's a couple of roller slides that this artificial grass is elevated. So these slides are on the ground. So when you get up to this elevated walkway there, you can just hit that slide, and friction's not gonna hold you back because there's rollers on it. So you can actually go back and forth on that thing, and kids can race down those. They have fairly low sides to them. The amenity on the right-hand side is a zip line that's 60 feet long.
Wow.
something like that. So that's kind of for the older age kids. And again, there's 2 of them, so you can race back and forth if you wanted to. There's
President?
also some shade canopies over the playground, and go ahead and stop me.
How tall are they? Can adults, you said it's for older kids.
Oh, yeah.
Can adults do that without touching?
Yeah, totally. Yep. Adults, so that's kind of your tweens and teens and adults and, yeah,
Get a race going on here.
you can get a race going.
We may or may not get kicked out of the playground.
So let me back up a minute, because one of the items on the playground, and this really isn't a good picture, but you can see where my cursor is. There's these panels right here that are on the playground. And what those are is what the playground people call a DigiFuse panel, and it's actually just a barrier, because there's a platform up there. It keeps people on the platform and not falling off. But there's opportunities there to add these educational items on that, and that's what this is. Exactly what that DigiFuse.
It's actually to scale. This is the size that they would be.
This is the size of the panels that are going to be on the playground. So there's 8 of these, and on the front side, which would be up in the air, some are up in the air, some are closer to the ground. There's the state flower. So these are all state of Idaho items. There's a state flower, state bird, state tree, fish, reptile, horse, insect, and gemstone. And then on the back of each one of these panels, so as you're climbing around and through the playground, you can read a little bit more information about each or various flowers that are in the state of Idaho, that are native to the state of Idaho, as well as flowers, birds, trees, fun facts, that kind of stuff. So kids can climb around in here and learn, what the state flower is, and what the state tree is, and state mammal, and all those kind of educational items. And kind of fun too. It's gonna, add a little color to it. And just kind of a cool thing. I mean, this kind of thing at this level really doesn't exist. The company offers DigiFuse panels, but they haven't done any that are custom like this, and they'll do them. So we're working with Stephanie Inman right now, that did the art at Rita Husky and Keith Bird and Hillsdale, to kind of do the layout and design these
Powder coated
panels.
or?
No, they call them DigiFuse. It's their trademark. It's more like more like fossil. They're not ceramic. They're more like fossil. It's the images are imprinted into the playground plastic. So they'll weather really good. They'll be somewhat scratch resistant.
If you're familiar with the directional signs in Kleiner, more like those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Madam President, are we going to plant these then, all around the playground? Like the Columbine? That sounds wonderful. Or whatever we can that would live.
We sure could. As we move forward through this park and this discovery idea, we need,
I think Kim might be able to throw in a little on that.
Kim, are you gonna?
I just had a comment on the arrowleaf balsam root, which is blooming now. And it does have an arrow-shaped leaf. And so maybe we're not critiquing the design particularly, but I think a leaf ought to be part of that, just because it's so clearly an arrow-shaped leaf. That's all.
Thank you. No, thank you. I mean, those are all great points. So we got this at about 4 o'clock this afternoon and plugged it in to.
Wow.
We've been working on it and people are busy. It's like, hey, we gotta talk about this tomorrow. Are you gonna be ready? So, the images that are on the slide, I got last night at 10 o'clock and this walked through the door at 4 o'clock today. So
That's pretty cool.
it's definitely a work in progress, but just to give you an idea of what the concept is and how it's gonna lay out and look, it's really cool. So
I would like these in my classroom.
one of the other components to this, so we have stuff for older kids. We have a zip line for adults and teens and, whoever wants to be there, roller slides, things like that are really cool. So we added an activity center for 2 to 5-year-olds. And there's 16 interactive play events on there from music to finding things to talking through tubes and all sorts of cool stuff. Of course, everything on there is fully accessible, and it's really scaled for developing toddlers and preschoolers. So again, it kind of goes back to that, we wanted the area to cater to all ages. So if you're having a picnic and you have, tiny kids with you, toddlers or teens that, you can bring them to the park and there's something there for everybody.
Thank you for the shade on all of the top of the equipment. I've noticed we've
Yeah.
put there's shades on every one
Yeah.
of the
Yeah,
tops.
of course.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, very important. So that's the playground. And if there isn't any other questions regarding the playground, I'll move on to the splash pad. And I think you gotta look at what Steve's presentation in the budget enhancement was to add those water globes. So the splash pad, the way it is designed right now, looks like this. The center component is a dumping tree that's made out of GFRC concrete that stands up in the air, and then the rest of them are ground sprayers. So it's got the dumping tree, the ground sprayers. Off to the side, there's a toddler zone. And then one of the really critical features of this is it's a one-pass system. So it uses potable water. It's totally drinkable, minimizes the staffing. You don't need to staff it. You're not trying to balance water or recirculate water. It's a low flow, one-pass system. Comes out of the tap, you can drink it, and the waste goes into the ground. So, and I think you've already seen this slide. This is what we wanted to add with those water globes. The water globes, you can put images on those as well, and we talked about putting images of, it could be Idaho fish, it could be birds, it could be reptiles, anything that crawls or lives in the water maybe is appropriate. We haven't got to that point yet because we found out that those weren't going to be in the budget, so we just kind of stopped developing ideas and design at that point. So, and those are pretty much plug and play because we're putting the plumbing in, and it's just a matter of taking the one fixture out and then putting these on top of it, and they're ready to go. So you can kind of see how the splash pad relates to the playground in proximity, the picnic shelter, splash pad, playground. And then as you go down, if you can see where my cursor is, these two red, those are the roller slides, and those come down a slope. So this walkway, there's a set of stairs right here, and it goes up in the air, and then it comes back down again to meet the other walk. So in that area, in the bottom of that area, we've designed in a climbing wall that is a map of the state of Idaho. And you can see that there is one done. You can see the kid climbing the state of Colorado. So ours we had to modify it a little bit because Idaho's not a perfect rectangle. You'd have like King of the Hill at the very top where it goes into the panhandle. So we had to include other states. But basically.
They're smaller, so it would be tougher to climb up over.
Right, yeah. So the, the topography and the geography is the handholds and the footholds as you go up. And Idaho is painted a little bit bolder colors, so it pops out, but we have part of Montana, Wyoming, and Oregon and Washington in there as well, so,
I think that's kind of cool though for education, so that
yeah.
Yeah, it's the
it's
north.
Yeah,
know
you
this
can-
bordering states.
You're playing on a map.
Yeah.
And so this area, as you climb up that wall, on each side of it, there's gonna be a boulder field that you can use as a scramble wall to get up on top, or you can use the map. And then to the right of it, there's a tube slide. So you can scramble up, and then you can slide down and just kind of rinse and repeat and keep going. Or you can take the stairs down, or you can take the boulders back down. So there's a couple different ways up, and there's a couple different ways down, so you can have, so you don't have to go up and then go back down the wall. You can go up and just keep going around in a loop.
I can't wait for the tour of this park.
So, yeah, this is, I mean, we think this is super cool.
Is the height of it good enough, or the 9 feet, or,
9 feet is,
because a good jump could get a lot of kids up to the top almost, so.
yeah, I'm sorry, what,
A good jump could get you up to the top.
9 feet?
Their
Ceiling
dunk
height.
basketball's at what, 10?
Yeah, your feet are,
Yeah.
a 4-foot vertical leap is,
Well, you'd
Like-
run and catch your toe on the front of that wall and jump up.
so 9 feet's about,
It's ceiling height.
about
This-
ceiling
it's-
height.
Yeah, it's taller than this. These are
Yeah.
probably 7-foot doors. So it's probably the top of the windows.
Top of the window back there.
Yeah, the transoms.
yeah. Yeah, it's not a huge, vertical element in terms of like 20 feet or, 10 to 20 feet.
No, I
Definitely
was
less than
thinking
Yeah, like
maybe
9 feet
10,
is
but,
pretty tall.
because 9 just seems a little short.
Yeah, I know we talked about it, and it was like, well,
I'd have a hard time going much higher than that for fall zone safety.
Right,
No.
that's the other
Yeah.
issue is that you do have kids up there and you don't want them to fall to their,
to fall to their death. They're not roped in, they're not
I-
harnessed in.
I didn't say it, but yes, that's,
Yeah, they learn to bounce, No, I'm teasing.
So once you get on top, you have artificial grass, rec grass, and then on the bottom, you have that as well. And it'll be built for the proper fall attenuation, so it'll be spongy enough to cushion the fall.
they don't break when they hit.
Yeah. And I think if you can just, the state of Colorado, that map there, and I would guess that boy that's on that is probably, what do you think, 4.5 feet high?
Yeah.
So that one's in that, it's in the 8 to 9 feet high,
Yeah, it looks probably like 8. It looks a little bit shorter than 9, maybe.
so,
I'm excited.
yeah.
It's taller than me. Well, this is true. It is.
While we're on this page, before we go back to the next one, the 2 shelters that were added back in, would they be on this picture at all? So where would they be?
They are not. So the 2 shelters that we're, that are in our budget request, one would be where my cursor is, over where the sand and water play is, right about here. And then another one would be right about in here. So they're more or less clustered together. I mean, but you have to, I mean, keep in mind the scale of this. This whole area is big. I mean, it's,
Right. Because what are the parking stalls are like 9 by 18 or something, so, right? This is just, those are to scale?
yeah, this picnic shelter is 60 feet long.
Yeah.
So it's, even, so between the picnic shelter that we're putting in and the playground, it's over 100 feet away. So you're not gonna feel like you're having a picnic with somebody you don't know.
The dark blue trees that are next to the splash pad? What-
These right here?
What are those? What kind of tree is that? Is that like a pine?
No, it's a red Tupelo. Tupelo? Same with that. So that's one of the other things we tried to do around the splash pad is to incorporate some shade. It's, especially for, there's some grass areas, and provide some trees there, nice sized trees that people can sit on the grass and watch the kids that are using the splash pad.
That'd be big.
Thinking.
So the next item is the sand and water play feature. And I know you saw this probably 6 or 9 months ago. Maybe it's been longer than that, a year ago. And it was just kind of an idea at that point in time. It wasn't really developed. So what we did is we took the area. There's a row of shade trees with grass back here and a seat wall. There's also some more grass with shade trees back here. There's a little plaza area. There's this log that is the accessible part of it. So if there's kids in wheelchairs that want to play in the water, they'll be able to roll up underneath that log and dam up the water in the log, and turn it on and have it go down and dump out.
Mike, is that a real wood or is it
It
a
is
synthetic?
Real wood.
What's the lifetime of that with the water and sand? And is it treated?
Maybe 20 years.
Okay.
It's maple. We're thinking about using the tree trunk from the maple in Centennial Park that we had to cut down.
Oh, nice.
That's cool.
So just another view. There'll be boulders in there for kids to sit on and just to give it some interest. Another view. So one of the, and I'm just going to run through these fairly quickly, but really the main thing to point out here is that the concrete channels will be shaped that'll emulate the shape of the Boise watershed with Lucky Peak Reservoir and Anderson Ranch Dam.
Wow.
And there's various gates that you can dam up the water up and down and dam it up and then let it go past. The sand will be almost 18 inches deep. So there's, you can make, kids can get in there and get dirty, just interactive play where you're making sand castles, you're getting covered in sand and playing in the water. It has a concrete bottom, so there's no chance of it getting real muddy. And, definitely significant shade. It's potable water coming out of the spouts and the fillers and the spouts, so there's no worry about kids drinking it, which they will.
Are we catching the sand to put it back as it washes down in the water towards the drain, or
Nope,
just gonna wash out?
maintenance. So it'll flow down towards the drain,
Right,
but it'll be a maintenance item to move it back to the top.
right.
Yeah.
This might be way off topic, but have you thought about approaching like Fish and Game or even Idaho Power, because they do have a lot to do with the dam system for hydroelectricity, to
As a sponsor.
sponsor any of this?
We haven't, but that's a great idea.
I just know our CHTM Hill does a lot of work
Yeah.
with the water system, so I was just thinking this
If-
would be an educational resource, not just for kids.
Yeah. No, I love the idea. If you have some contacts or anybody that you could steer our way, that would be awesome.
Right. Okay.
Madam President, would this have the same season, like open on Memorial Day for the water? Is this gonna follow that?
No.
No?
It would be on the same schedule as our drinking fountains, which come on about April 1st and go off October 30th.
A little bit longer then.
A little bit longer, yep. Yeah, kids can wear jackets and play in the sand and get dirty, so yeah. Well, that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions, feedback?
I just have one. I kind of tag in on Joe's deal. If you're doing the Boise watershed, you could even like inscribe in your, like, do a simulation of Lucky Peak. And it flows down, and so they can kind of get an idea of, okay, here's a reservoir and the water flows down here, and you could trap it and do whatever you, do the same thing, but you could even put, you know, even in this stuff and sponsored by, you know.
Yeah,
whatever.
I think that's a
A
great
little
idea.
water fountain to catch
But
the
that way you
rooster
kind of
tail
go,
at
'cause
Lucky
you go
Peak.
to places like
So
Lucky
we've,
Peak and,
we've talked about labeling some of the channels, so,
be cool.
and weren't really sure if we were going to create a mold to push into the concrete and then remove, and then use epoxy to fill, like black epoxy to label it, or if it was a brass, maybe just pinned into the concrete. It's like, you know, there was so much going on to get to this point that we just kind of ran out of time to see some of these ideas to fruition. But we have ideas to label it and make it more interactive. The other thing that we'll probably do is we'll probably put some, the playground people sell these fossils that can be bolted down or epoxied down to the concrete before you put the sand in. So you can dig through the sand to find fossils, which is kind of cool. We talked about maybe putting a full-size Hagedorn horse, and then we got carried away and stopped, so.
Down there.
But yeah, all kinds of good ideas, yeah.
Job.
Thank you,
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm
Awesome.
excited.
really fun, thanks.
I think it's worth noting that the next stop for this presentation would be taking it to council next week as an update to them as well, and get ready for the project to come back with a contract. So.
It's exciting. Okay, we have no workshop. Do we have any staff reports? So I go back to you.
I'm going to take Colin's place. Yeah, you've heard enough from me on my own priorities, but I did talk to Colin about some of the things he'd like to have brought up. One of the things he wanted to focus on was home court and all of the efforts that are going on over there. In addition to the efforts related to what may become of Bay 5, there's been the LED lighting project that's been going on this spring that's been all replaced in the first 4 main bays, and we're going to get the 5th bay done now that we know that we're not going to be putting a new ceiling in there and taking out any such improvements. But the fiber connection project is underway this summer. IT is helping us with that. The wood flooring, the complete sand down and refinish is scheduled for end of the summer. We'll be doing that this year. And then the signage replacements that I mentioned, and then a variety of things related to Bay 5 floor repairs and wall painting and curtain dividers and different bids that he's been getting in preparation for that. The next thing would be just pointing out that the summer classes for the activity guide, hopefully everyone's seen that the new activity guide has come out. It was released in April, and summer classes begin on June 4th and conclude August 17th. The next thing to point out is that third summer campsite that was pointed out earlier in my presentation. Just wanted to let you know that the registrations are already open for that and that they're actually going quite well. The third site, which is a second site in North Meridian, is actually filling up faster than the existing South Meridian site. So there must have been some pent-up demand, and we're glad to see that third site is registering well. Unplug and Be Outside Week, just a mention of that for this week and promotion of that. I will note that just today I noticed that NRPA, the National Recreation and Parks Association, picked up KTVB's story about our kickoff event last Saturday, and published it in their, what they call their smart brief, and send out to all NRPA members nationwide as Parks and Recreation news around the nation. And I was like, wow, little Meridian, Idaho got featured in their smart brief for Unplug and Be Outside Week. So that was kind of exciting. And then again, just to say it a third time, Hillsdale Park grand opening. We'll hope you'll join us out there on Friday, May 25th. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Steve, are you wanting commissioners for the ribbon cutting and the celebration? Is that?
You are invited and welcome to both. If you have to pick one, I hope you'll come to the park in the evening. But you're certainly, we'd love to have you at both if you have that much flexibility. But if we had to promote one to you as the Parks Commission, it would be the park grand opening.
Okay.
So.
Okay, at the 5 o'clock. Okay.
So the events does start at 5, but just to make sure it's clear, the band starts at 6 p.m.
Okay. Any more staff reports? You guys are good?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Okay, then could I get a motion to adjourn?
Madam President,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Madam President, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.